What if you could plant something once this April and spend the next 20 years watching it multiply, fill in, and transform your entire landscape, without replanting, without rebuying, and without spending another dollar? Most gardeners are stuck in an annual trap. Every spring, same routine. Same trip to the nursery. Same flats of petunias and marigolds that look beautiful in May and are dead by September. And next year, you do it all over again. The garden never grows. It just resets. But the gardeners who figured this out a long time ago, the old homesteaders, the cottage gardeners, the people who planted once and never had a bare patch again, they did it with perennials. Specifically, fast-spreading perennials. Plants that don't just survive year after year. Plants that move. Plants that claim ground, fill gaps, choke out weeds, feed pollinators, and make your landscape look like it's been there for decades, because eventually it has. April is the window. The soil is warming. The root systems want to establish before the heat hits. And the 10 plants I'm going to show you today are the ones that reward an April planting more than any others. By the time we get to number 7, you'll understand why one of the most overlooked ground covers on this list can replace your mulch entirely and never need replacing. And number 10 spreads so aggressively that experienced gardeners contain it on purpose, but planted in the right place, it turns a bare slope into a living carpet in a single season. If you want plants that work as hard as you do, hit subscribe right now. Let's get into it. 1. Creeping Phlox. The spring carpet that never quits. If you've driven past a stone wall or rocky slope in April and stopped your car because you couldn't believe what you were looking at, a cascading river of pink, purple, and white blooms pouring over every surface, that was creeping phlox. And whoever planted it may have done so 20 years ago and done nothing since. Creeping phlox is a low-growing, mat-forming perennial that spreads steadily outward from a central crown, rooting as it goes. It reaches 4 to 6 inches tall and will expand a foot or more in every direction each year once established. Planted in April, give it one good season to root in, and by year 2 it begins doing what it does best, covering ground. The bloom period is April through May, a solid 4 to 6 weeks of dense color at exactly the moment when the rest of the garden is still waking up. After bloom, the foliage stays green and tight through the entire growing season, functioning as a living ground cover that suppresses weeds without any help from you. It thrives in full sun to partial shade, tolerates poor rocky soil, handles slopes and erosion, and once established is remarkably drought tolerant. It wants good drainage. It does not want wet feet. Give it a sunny slope, a wall edge, or a rock garden, and it will spread exactly where you need it. Traditional use. Planted at the front of borders, along walkways, and over rocky slopes where nothing else holds. Divide the mats every 3 to 4 years to reinvigorate the plants and multiply your stock. 1 plant becomes 5. 5 becomes 20. That's the math that changes a landscape. 2. Daylilies, the unkillable spreader. Let's be honest about daylilies. They are not subtle. They spread aggressively, they multiply every year, and if you plant them in the right location, they will eventually take over. That is not a warning. That is the feature. Daylilies spread through underground fans called rhizomes that divide and multiply continuously. A single clump planted in April will double in size by fall. In 3 years, it will be large enough to divide into a dozen plants. In 5 years, a single original plant can populate an entire slope, a ditch line, or a bank that nothing else would grow on without maintenance. The bloom period runs from late spring through summer depending on variety, and by selecting early, mid, and late varieties, you can extend daylily color across nearly the entire growing season. Each individual bloom lasts only 1 day, hence the name, but a mature clump produces hundreds of buds over weeks, creating continuous color without any deadheading required. They are among the most adaptable plants in existence. Full sun, partial shade, poor soil, slopes, compacted ground. Daylilies genuinely do not care. They established themselves along roadsides and abandoned homesteads across North America because they were planted once and never needed anything again. Traditional use. Mass planted on slopes for erosion control, along fence lines to create seasonal privacy, and in the back of borders where their spreading habit fills space that would otherwise require constant weeding. Divide clumps every 4 to 5 years to maintain vigor. The divisions are free plants. pass them to neighbors. That is how these plants have traveled from garden to garden for generations. 3. Bee balm, the pollinator magnet that spreads like fire. Bee balm earned its name. Plant it once and watch what happens on a warm July morning. Hummingbirds, bumblebees, monarch butterflies, swallowtails. Every beneficial insect in your county will find it within a season and return every year after. Bee balm spreads through underground stolons, horizontal stems that radiate outward from the original plant and send up new shoots every few inches. A single plant planted in April will triple in diameter by its second year and continue expanding indefinitely unless divided. In rich soil with adequate moisture, bee balm can spread 2 feet or more in a season. It blooms in midsummer, producing shaggy globe-shaped flowers in deep red, pink, lavender, and white depending on variety. The foliage smells strongly of oregano, it's in the same family, and has a long history in Native American and colonial herbal medicine as a treatment for respiratory infections, fever, and digestive upset. The Oswego people of upstate New York used it as a tea, which is how it entered colonial American use as Oswego tea. The one thing bee balm wants is air circulation. Planted too densely, it's prone to powdery mildew. Give it space, divide it every 2 to 3 years, and plant mildew-resistant varieties like Jacob Klein or Marshall's Delight. It does best in full sun to partial shade with consistent moisture. Traditional use, mid-border in a cottage garden or naturalized meadow planting. Cut it back hard after bloom to encourage a second flush of foliage and sometimes a second bloom. Divide the spreading clumps in spring to control spread and multiply your stock. The divisions establish quickly. By midsummer, you won't be able to tell they were just moved. 4. Black-eyed Susan, the meadow maker. Black-eyed Susan is the plant that makes a landscape look effortless, because once you plant it, it largely is. Rudbeckia hirta spreads through both self-seeding and root division. A single plant will produce dozens of seeds that scatter and germinate freely in surrounding soil, filling in bare patches, moving into edges, and naturalizing across a planting area over 2 to 3 seasons. The result looks intentional. It looks like a wildflower meadow that has always been there. The bloom period is extraordinary. Midsummer through fall, often into October, golden yellow daisy flowers with dark centers covering the plant continuously for months. The dried seed heads stand through winter, providing food for goldfinches and structural interest in the dormant garden. In spring, new seedlings emerge exactly where you want more plants, which is usually everywhere. Black-eyed Susans tolerate heat, drought, poor soil, and neglect with a cheerfulness that puts more finicky perennials to shame. They are native across North America, meaning local pollinators evolved alongside them and rely on them. A planting of black-eyed Susans is not just beautiful, it is an ecological resource. Traditional use, naturalized in large drifts with other native perennials, Coneflower, bee balm, Catmint, allow the self-seeding to fill in, edit rather than plant. Thin the seedlings that emerge in the wrong spots and let the ones in the right spots stay. The garden manages itself. That is the point. 5. Creeping Jenny, the living mulch. This is the one I mentioned at the start, the ground cover that can replace your mulch and never need replacing. And it does exactly that. Creeping Jenny is a low-growing, rapidly spreading perennial with round chartreuse or golden leaves that root at every node as the stems trail across the soil surface. It spreads quickly, 6 to 24 inches of new growth per season, creating a dense, weed-suppressing mat that keeps the soil moist, cool, and biologically active the way living ground covers do, and wood chip mulch never can. In moist, partially shaded conditions, Creeping Jenny is aggressive. Plant it where you want permanent ground cover and nowhere else, because it will fill every inch you give it. Along stream edges, under trees, in shaded borders, on slopes that stay moist, it moves into those spaces and holds them. The golden variety, Lysimachia nummularia aurea, is among the most visually striking ground covers available. Its bright lime gold foliage glows in shade, contrasting with darker hostas, ferns, and astilbe. It produces small yellow flowers in summer, but the foliage is the main event. Traditional use, planted at the edge of water features, under shrubs, along shaded pathways, and anywhere that staying mulched is a constant battle. Once established, maintenance is nearly zero. If it strays where you don't want it, pull the trailing stems back. It roots shallowly and removes easily. The containment effort is minimal. The ground it covers maintains itself. 6. Coneflower, the medicine that self-sows forever. Echinacea is one of the most widely studied medicinal plants in existence. It's also one of the most beautiful summer perennials you can grow. And once it's in your garden, it stays in your garden, expanding, self-sowing and filling in every year without asking anything of you. Coneflowers spread both by root division, the central clump expanding outward each season, and by prolific self-seeding. Allow the seed heads to stand through winter. By spring, seedlings will appear throughout the surrounding soil. Those seedlings establish quickly and bloom by their second year. A planting of 3 coneflowers becomes 15 in 5 years without a single intentional division. The bloom period runs from midsummer through fall, producing the iconic raised cone centers and reflex petals in purple, pink, white, orange, and red, depending on variety. Goldfinches eat the seeds directly from the standing heads. Bees work every open bloom. The ecological value of a coneflower planting in a home landscape is genuinely significant. The roots have been used in Native American medicine for centuries and are now backed by clinical research for immune support and respiratory illness. The plant you're growing for beauty is also the plant behind the supplement in every pharmacy. Traditional use: mid-border in full sun, naturalized in meadow plantings, or grown in dedicated medicinal herb gardens. Leave the seed heads standing through winter. Divide the expanding clumps every 3 to 4 years. Let the self-sown seedlings fill in between established plants. Thin them where they crowd. Leave them where they fit. The garden does the planting. 7. Lamb's ear, the drought-proof silver carpet. Stachys byzantina does one thing better than almost any plant in existence. It covers dry, sun-baked ground that nothing else wants to grow in, and it spreads steadily doing it. Lamb's ear produces silver-white, densely woolly leaves that feel exactly like what the name suggests. The texture is tactile, almost architectural, and the silvery color functions as a neutral that brightens every color planted near it: dark purples, deep reds, burgundy foliage. It spreads by producing offset rosettes at the base of established plants that root independently and move outward each season. It is extraordinarily drought-tolerant once established. It handles poor soil, full sun, and heat that wilts everything nearby. The one thing it cannot tolerate is wet, poorly drained conditions. In those situations, the center of the clump rots. In everything else, it thrives and spreads. The flower spikes in June and July are either decorative or distracting depending on your taste. Many gardeners remove them to keep the focus on the foliage. Either way, the plant's value is its ground covering, spreading, weed-suppressing growth habit in the difficult dry sunny spots where ground cover is hardest to establish. Traditional use: edging borders, filling the dry strip between a path and a fence, covering slopes in full sun where moisture doesn't stay. Divide the expanding clumps in spring to multiply plants and rejuvenate older sections. A flat of lamb's ear planted in April will be 3 times its size by October. 8. Hostas, the shade solution that multiplies itself. If you have a shaded area in your landscape where nothing grows well, hostas are the answer. Not a partial answer, not a compromise. The answer. Hostas expand steadily each year from a central crown, adding size and producing more and more foliage as the clump matures. A small division planted in April becomes a substantial plant by fall and a commanding specimen within 3 years. Mature hostas can be divided every 3 to 5 years into multiple plants, a single large clump yielding 5 to 10 divisions that establish quickly and begin expanding on their own. The variety within the hosta genus is extraordinary. Leaf colors from near white through gold, chartreuse, blue-green, and deep forest green. Sizes from 6-inch miniatures to 4-foot giants. Slug resistance and sun tolerance vary by variety, but the fundamental growth habit, expanding, ground covering, low maintenance, holds across all of them. Hostas also produce fragrant lily-like flowers in summer that attract hummingbirds. The foliage turns golden in fall before going dormant. In spring, the emerging shoots are one of the most reliable signs that the garden is waking up. Traditional use, mass planted under trees along shaded paths in the north-facing borders where sun-loving plants struggle. Combine varieties for contrast: blue-green next to gold next to variegated. The combinations are nearly limitless and the maintenance is minimal. 9. Catmint, the drought-tolerant blue wave. Nepeta is the plant that makes a landscape look professionally designed for almost no money and almost no maintenance. It flows. It softens edges. It spills over walkway borders in waves of lavender blue that bloom from late spring through summer and again in fall if you cut it back. And it spreads, steadily and reliably, every year. Catmint spreads both by root expansion and by self-seeding, filling in along border edges and pathway margins with a soft, aromatic mound that reaches 2 feet in height and 3 feet across at maturity. Bees absolutely cover it in bloom. The lavender blue flower spikes are among the most bee-attractive flowers in the garden. It is drought-tolerant, heat-tolerant, deer-resistant, and essentially pest-free. In poor, dry, sunny conditions where other perennials struggle, catmint thrives. The soft silvery green foliage smells of mint and is unappealing to deer and rabbits, making it one of the most reliable choices in areas with heavy grazing pressure. Cut the entire plant back by half after the first bloom flush in June, and it will rebloom heavily in August and September, providing late-season color when much of the garden is winding down. Traditional use: edging long borders, flanking pathways, cascading over low walls, and filling the dry, sunny mid-border spots between more upright plants. Walker's Low is the most widely grown variety and among the best performing. Plant in April, cut back in June after bloom, and watch the second act. 10. Yarrow, the aggressive healer you want everywhere. Yarrow will spread. Let's be clear about that upfront. Achillea millefolium spreads by both underground rhizomes and prolific self-seeding, and in favorable conditions, full sun, average soil, it moves quickly and confidently into surrounding space. That is exactly why it belongs in your April planting list. The flat-topped flower clusters of yarrow bloom from early summer through fall in white, yellow, pink, salmon, and deep red. The ferny, aromatic foliage is attractive through the entire growing season. Dried flowers hold their color for months, and the combination of pollinator value, particularly for native bees, wasps, and beneficial predatory insects, and spreading ground cover habit makes yarrow one of the hardest working plants in any landscape. Yarrow has a documented medicinal history stretching back to ancient Greece. The genus name Achillea comes from Achilles, who reportedly used it to stop the bleeding of his soldiers' wounds on the battlefield. The leaves contain compounds with astringent and antimicrobial properties. Every traditional herbal system on Earth incorporated it. The plant that's filling your border is the same plant that has been a field medicine for 3,000 years. Traditional use: naturalized in meadow plantings, mass planted on dry slopes, and used as a filler in the mid-border where spreading is welcome. Divide every 2 to 3 years to maintain vigor and control spread. The divisions establish aggressively. You will never run short of yarrow once it's in your landscape. 10 plants, 1 April planting window. A landscape that grows more beautiful every year without starting over. Here is the thing most gardeners don't fully understand until they've been doing this long enough. A garden built on fast-spreading perennials doesn't just maintain itself. It compounds. Every year the coverage is denser. Every year the weeds have less room. Every year the pollinators return in larger numbers. Every year the landscape looks more established, more intentional, more alive. You plant once, the plants do the rest. Choose 2 or 3 from this list that match your conditions, your sun, your soil, your moisture, and plant them this April. Don't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect plan. The best time to plant a perennial is always now. Drop a comment and tell me which one you're planting first, or which one is already taking over your garden in the best possible way. I read every single comment, and if you haven't subscribed to Health and Longevity yet, hit that button now. We post every week, and we're just getting started. See you in the next one.